Yes, this is what we were discussing. This negation of negation. See what he's saying, that every situation has an opposite idea in it. Now what happens? What further he is saying, that negation of negation happens. What is that? During movement. Movement means from one stage to the other stage. I'll tell you like this. Movement means that from stage 1 to stage 2, this is what movement is. Negativities get eliminated, which means stage 2 will always be greater than 1. This is how progression is happening. This is how evolution is happening. So the next one is a better one. Why? Because see, this negativities get eliminated, higher truth emerges. That's it. This is how it works. These are the 3 points, and from here onwards, now you can see the picture of these Marxists. I made a flowchart also yesterday. How did Marxism in India, in Venezuela, in all the things you have noted. So I'm not going to that. Okay. Now let us proceed. Steps of Marxism. Now you just need to note the names now. There is not much that you have to do here. This is what Karl Marx, dialectical with mechanism, and he replaced Hegel's idealism, and thus he claimed that Hegel was standing on his head. I made him stand on his feet. He turned Hegel upside down by replacing his dialectic idealism with his own dialectical mechanism, or can also say this materialism. This is what Karl Marx introduced. Next come economic determinism. This is a more appropriate and more famous term than the alternative that is called historical materialism. This one is more often used. Second stage is more often named as economic determinism. Then there is something called surplus value. Then there is class struggle. Then there is evolution. Then there is dictatorship of proletariat. Another name would be socialism. Remember, I discussed yesterday that socialism is the second last stage. And then comes ideal communist state, which will be free from all contradictions. It would be perfect. Perfect implies no scope for improvement. Is it all right? Just see the stages. I'll explain each and every step to that. Remove this. Which second point, Vishnu? No. Words are different, meaning is same. The more famous one is economic determinism. Now we will move this. Now this is the symbol of the commies. I'm recommending a movie to you. You watch it. Which one it would be? Anyone? Motorcycle Diaries. But you have to watch it with subtitles because it's in some other language. I don't know which language because I don't understand that language. So it's an alien language to me. It's the story of Che Guevara. You must have seen this guy on t-shirts. Have you seen that? I'll show you his photo. You'll remember him. Because ऐसा हो नहीं सकता है कि इंडिया में किसी ने इसको t-shirt नहीं देखा. No one knows who this guy is. The story is there in Motorcycle Diaries. It was a book actually on which this movie was made. Okay. So hammer and sickle. Hammer for the worker. Hammer will be used by the worker, right? During Marx's time in 19th century, and sickle will be used by the farmers. Anyone who has watched Motorcycle Diary? Yes. He is like. Next, more than Bhagat Singh, right? Batao, India has its own league of extraordinary revolutionaries, and then we are wearing t-shirts. I'm glad that fashion has ended. When I was in college, I remember every other guy used to wear that, girls used to wear that, and I used to ask them, do you know who this guy is? So most of them had no idea because the rebellious image that he conveyed, like a rock star type image. That was the reason that people used to sport it. He was from Argentina, but he was killed in working for Cuba along with Fidel Castro. He was killed by CIA. I'll tell you about him also. Nestor Che Guevara. Yes, Chernobyl is also there. Now, what is dialectic materialism? Back to our point. Is the philosophical base of Marxism. Karl Marx has explained everything. Okay, Marx has explained everything on its basis. On the basis of dialectic materialism. It's the philosophical base. Dialectics is the process of development and matter is the main element. Unlike idea, world is an organic unity. These are his presumptions. World is, and you all know what is organic, not carbon. Okay. Organic means it is having some similar constituents and it's ever changing. Change is always progressive. Remember, antithesis is better than thesis. Synthesis is better. Why? Because of this thing. No issues here. Change is always progressive. Yes, Indian constitution can be said to be organic. ये आपके समझ में आया change progressive कैसे है? Because the third stage Synthesis is better than the second stage, antithesis, which is better than the first stage. Okay, now you see, contradiction is responsible for this change. Because remember the first law of dialectics, first law, that every system has inherent contradictions in it. So because of that inherent contradiction, change will happen. So suppose a system is here. A system is like this, a compact system. It is having two elements. Two elements are there and they are contradicting each other. Like you talk about democracy and you also talk about good governance. But because democracy is having multitude of ideas, so everything that is good will not be possibly practiced. Okay, the public opinion is so diverse. So that is why inherent contradictions in democracy. This is what Marx will say. Now, because of this, the next stage will come. So contradiction is responsible for this. Matter is the main element of this change. Hegel also supported dialectical method, but he emphasized on idea, unlike Marx, who has emphasized on matter. And that's why his idealism is called dialectic idealism. Marx accepted dialectical process, but substituted idealism with materialism. Hegel was standing on his head. I made him stand on his feet. I've discussed this, just written it here. Ye Karl Marx keh raha hai. Now you see, thesis is the primary stage. Everything that we have seen, I put it here, which has some inherent contradictions. These contradictions give birth to antithesis. Synthesis is the result of action and reaction between thesis and antithesis. Synthesis again becomes thesis, and this process goes on until Wilhelm interview selection. Yaad hai na? So until the ideal communist state arrives, ideal communist state is free from all contradictions. It never becomes thesis and development process is lost. Because how can you develop something that is perfect? Okay, you cannot improve perfection, right? So that is what ideal communist state is. These things we have already seen here. I'll again draw this flowchart for your convenience here. Thesis becomes antithesis, becomes, they both interact and become synthesis. Now it again turns into thesis, which again turns into antithesis. Again they both interact and become synthesis. And this process will go on until ideal communist state arrives. This is what this was. It will be, what is the characteristics? It will be free from all contradictions. There will be no development because something that is perfect will not cannot be developed. Any criticism will criticize each step here. It is self-contradictory. Why? All development stages are not progressive. History tells us that all development products are not progressive. How can we call this thing progressive? Will it be called progressive? Not at all. Next stage will always be progressive. That's not possible. That's simply not possible. No. Here we all condemn Nazism equivocally. So we cannot call it progressive by any stretch of imagination. That is why the next stage will always be progressive. We cannot say this, right? It overemphasizes matter. Why? Because ideas also have certain role to play. It's not that matter decides everything. Matter has to be backed with certain amount of idea also. Like someone said, Locke said that ideas and matter both are equal. Reason and what he called reason and forgot. Like two traits are in balance in the perfect man. The perfect composition is found. That is what Marx is saying. He is always for matter. But then ideas have a role to play. You act according to certain ideas only. Your matter shapes up accordingly when you act on certain idea. So this overemphasizes, this dialectic materialism overemphasizes, and the main problem is that they always say that the next thing will always be progressive. Yes, reason and passion, was Locke was saying. So next stage may not always be progressive. You can add more elements here, like you can even say from history, if you see, for Nepal, until now, for Nepal, the arrival of democracy, the so-called democracy in Nepal, after the monarch was killed, the entire royal family of Nepal was killed. And since then, Nepal has been in a turmoil. They have experimented with constitution at least a dozen times. Experts from India went there to guide them, but they could not arrive at what would be their constitution. Right. So again, how can we say that the ushering of democracy in Nepal after monarchy is a progressive state, because the country is suffering like anything? Like the onset of terrorism in Valley of Kashmir, how can we call it progressive? Entire decade witnessed a bloodshed. Okay, so how can we say that the decade of 90 was progressive for Kashmir? The exile of Hindus from the valley and the onset of militancy or terrorism was progressive. That cannot be progressive at all, right? So history has given us so many examples where the next stage is anything but progressive. In fact, at times they are very, very regressive, right? You all agree to this? You can have your own point, but be very careful when selecting such examples. If you are doing, select such examples which will be condemned by everyone as per the Indian Constitution. That would be your yardstick. No one will say that the arrival of militancy in Kashmir is very progressive. Okay, anyone who is appearing for the exam has to abide with the Constitution. Okay, you can weigh your arguments on that parameter. Okay, can I move this? You understood the criticism? Yes, of course you will quote from Indian perspective. Yes, these criticism are for dialectic ones. The first step, nothing more is required. Marxism is left, only one stage has been covered now. Next is economic determinism or historic materialism. It is the implementation of philosophical theory of dialecticism. It is called economic determinism because it believes that economic factors are the base for all development. Now here comes the Karl Marx role of everything is decided by economic factor, he would say. Everything. Main hypothesis is what? Historical materialism is that mode of production plays material that it should not be. This should be established. The sentence is only constructed here. एक comma बस here. Main hypothesis of historical materialism is mode of production. It is nothing but economic factor. Okay, mode of production plays decisive role. So what we are seeing here is, I'll just make few more sketches for you. This step unequivocally, it focuses on economic factor, basis of everything. This is everything, and in economic factor, what would matter? Mode of production. That is what matters. So when you can control this, economic factor, which ultimately means mode of production, you can control everything in the world. So first of and foremost, this is to be controlled. And who is controlling it? Capitalists are controlling it. Right? That is why there is so much of exploitation happening, because these things are being controlled by the greedy capitalists. Did you understand this? Understood it? All of you? Economic determinism says that mode of production plays the most important role. And the one who controls mode of production, you can use mode of production and economic factor as synonym, will control each and everything. Is it all right? Now you see. Means of production, tools through which production is done. Factory, machine, land, these are the means of production. Now there are forces of production. You add labor power to these things. Means of production, you get forces of production. Very simple thing. Means of production, factory, machines, land, tools, instruments. When labor is added to it, all these things, it becomes force of production. Relation of production. During production process, people involved in production develop relationships which are based on class. See, relations of, you understood this? Force of production मतलब means, ये जो है means of production plus this. Very simple. Force of production is means of production. What is means of production? Factory, machine, land, everything. You add labor, it becomes force of production. So there is something called relation of production. During production process, the people involved in production develop relationship which is again based on class. Now what is the class? Let me tell you. Like there is worker, then there would be supervisor, then there would be manager, then there would be board of directors, right? These are the class. Worker would maximum time interact with fellow workers. Supervisor of one department would maximum time equally interact with other supervisors. He will treat his workers as a subordinate always. And so the manager from finance to the HR, still it is in practice, right? So these are the classes. These are the classes that have emerged, right? This you understood. The factors of production will come to that also. First you see this. Then what he says, mode of production. The mind form of forces of production, that is the economic system. Now, this is where his main emphasis is. This is where his main emphasis of Karl Marx is. Relations of production, the relationship based on class during production process. Forces of production, means of production, all you understood now. Mode of production, how the production is being done. Combined form of forces of production, like a labor intensive industry would use more of labor. A capital intensive industry would use more of machines. This is what mode of production is, where there will be more machines or where there will be more men. Because if a machine comes, even in farming, if you employ a tractor, you need less people on the field. They can be employed in something else. So this mode of production is the main thing, right? This represents the economic system of state. Like any doubt you have, you will soon understand it. Don't worry. According to economic determinism, again, most important point, mode of production. Okay, mode of production is substructure, and other structures are superstructure. Now, please see this. Forget this. What I have written. Just I'll show you here. There are two terms that he has used. Substructure. This mode of production. The student economic factor, mode of production, the way process is being done, the production process is being followed in the factories. Second thing he has used superstructure. Every other thing will fall here. Mode of production is what? This is the economic factor, is what your substructure is. Now superstructure is based or dependent on substructure. What is here in superstructure? What are the elements? Society, religion, politics, morality, and ethics. Everything is a part of superstructure. Administration, legal system. Everything is a part of superstructure. And on what factor does superstructure depend on? See here, it depends on this thing, substructure. And what is substructure? Mode of production. So just listen, just see here carefully. If you want to make an impact, if you want to impact or change anything here, anything you want to change here, you will have to change mode of production, because these things are based on substructure. Just now we saw superstructure is based on substructure, which means society, religion, politics, morality, ethics, administration, legal system, everything is based on economic factor. Now, an example, in India, largely it is believed, now there are some exceptions also, but still largely believed that our MPs and MLAs have lots of money. You cannot fight an election. Now, don't give me example of your Mr. Pratap Sarangi or a certain Narendra Modi. I'm not asking for exceptions and aberrations. I'm generalizing it. The more, if you need to have money to fight election, so isn't economic factor being a factor here that is shaping politics? Again, in society, you have heard about this guy Kaushik Basu. Kaushik Basu was PM ESC, Prime Minister Economic Advisory Council, when Mr. Pranab Mukherjee was Finance Minister. So he said that in India we have Sanskritization of corruption. He has used this term, Sanskritization of corruption, which means anyone who earns money through any means, people respect him. Okay, that people admire and show their reverence for a person who has a big koti, a big bungalow, who drives a big car, who has a good bank balance. They do not question the means through which the money is being made. So again, your morality and ethics are being affected. Administration, you cannot get your work done if you don't have access on money. Legal system, you will not get justice if you don't have money. Now, things are improving, but during Karl Marx, these things were very much visible. Did you understand this? How economic decides every other thing? Aaya aapke samajh mein? So, Shreyas, please see again. Two things are in world. One is substructure. Substructure are the economic factors, which is again mode of production. The way production is being done. Then there is something called superstructure, which superstructure is dependent on substructure. See, I have drawn the arrow here. Superstructure is dependent on substructure. Now, what is superstructure? Every other aspect other than economic factor, society, the way society is shaped, religion, politics, morality and ethics of a society, administrative structure, the legal system, everything depends on substructure because they are part of superstructure. Superstructure is dependent on substructure, which means if you want to change anything in society, first you need to control the economic factor. Suppose you want to say that in society, even poor people will have equal respect like rich people, hypothetically speaking. When will this be possible? When you will have a control on economic factor. If you want to say that today religious institutions will not be given certain benefits, like Napoleon did with the Roman Empire. He demolished the Roman Empire. He nationalized the French churches. How could he do that? Because he could do that when he will control the economic factor, when he will change the mode of production. So any change in mode of production can bring the necessary change in all these factors over here, which means even to impact one component of superstructure, you need to have control on substructure. Is it all right now? Yes. This is what is written here. Legal system, religion, morality, ideology are superstructure. Superstructure depends on substructure. So whenever a change in mode of production takes place, every other thing, including the state, religion, legal system, automatically changes. So if you are not happy with the religious preferences, religious order, or the legal system, or the education system, or the morality, ethics, or state form, administration, politics. You want to change them, you need to change the mode of production first. Because again, why do we need to do that? Because all these things where we want to make a change, this be it state, be it religion, be it legal, or it can be ethical. I've already discussed these things. They all are part of what? Tell me, superstructure or substructure? Bolo, yeah, na? And on what the superstructure depends? Substructure. So you change the substructure. You change the substructure. You change this. Every other thing, these things will automatically change, right? History of development of society is the history of development of mode of production, according to Karl Marx. Okay, he says whatever change has happened in history, it has happened because mode of production has changed. Now, how he says this? Because during his time, what was happening, you try to understand this, try to empathize with Marx. You will say, understand why he's saying so. Let me just draw everything here. Why he's saying so? Early man is living in caves, jungles. What is the mode of production? Nothing. He is a nomad, hunter-gatherer, right? He's a nomad. He doesn't grow. Then he evolves. Earliest form of society emerges. He starts doing farming. Then further evolves. So farming, money is now invented, right? Landowners. So there will be uh, workers, and then there will be landowners. There are two factors here. Two set of two classes have emerged now. One is the owner, the other is working for him. He will make them work and pay them. Now this further evolves. Again, there is an evolution here. This further evolves, which gives rise to feudalism. Now there are big feudal lords owning large acres of land. They have lot of workers or farmers. Is another term, serf, working for them. Now, these feudal lords report to their monarch. Every monarch has 10 feudal lords under him, and these 10 feudal lords have thousands of workers. So, you again see classes emerging here. Now, monarchy is gone, capitalism has come. Now, land is factory, and now factories want mass production to happen. So, factory will have an owner. Second one would be, so more owner wants profit, more he will exploit the worker. So same thing was happening here, right? So how does this economic determinism works? When mode of production, earlier, now see, from being a nomad, was a hunter-gatherer, to the next stage of very small scale farming, to formalization of feudalism, where there was a landowner, to large landowners, that is feudal lords being emerging, who had more number of people working on their farms, to the advent of capitalism, where factory became the more appropriate unit for production, which was owned by the owner, the capitalist, and the worker. And now he talks about overthrowing the capital by his socialist or communist methods. Now you understood why history is what, according to Karl Marx, history is development of society, of history of development of society is the history of development of mode of production from one to the other to the other to the other. And now capitalism needs to be overthrown because it's a devil form of economic system. It has its own inherent contradiction in it. Are you understanding? Please tell me. All the social, political, and intellectual relations, all religions and legal system, all theoretical outlooks which emerge in the course of history are derived from material conditions of life. This is his statement. Okay, here again he is emphasizing on matter, the economic factor. Everything, religion, intellectual relation, your personal relation, your family, everything depends on economic. Okay, that is what Marx is saying. Now there is primitive communism. Early man, it had no private property, no institution. It was what? It was a classless and stateless society. There was no class. When early man used to live, there was no state, country nahi tha. Now man developed it. Slavery, master and slave, right? Feudalism, feudal lord and serfs. capitalism, capitalist, bourgeois and proletariat. You have seen this. Dictatorship of proletariat. Now this will happen after Karl Marx revolution will happen. When the working class, that is the proletariat, will throw up the capitalists and take power in their hands. This is what he wants. And then will come the final stage. Now this will always come through a revolution when this class will overthrow. The capitalist haves will be overthrown by have-nots. This is what socialism is. This is what happened in 1917 Bolshevik Revolution of Russia. 1949 Mao, he called it cultural revolution in China. Now next stage after this dictatorship will be the ideal communist state, which will be free of all contradictions. This still has some contradictions. This will be again stateless, classless, no private property, no marriage, no family, something like the primitive communist society where early man used to wander. But this will be the best. Everyone, every need will be fulfilled. Now this never actually materialized. This only came in his writings. It did not come in Russia. It's not coming in China for every one of us to see. So it never came everywhere. This is just what he says, but it did not materialize. Criticism. It gave importance to economic factors, but not all historic events. Not all historic events can be explained on the basis of economic factor. How will you explain the Israel-Palestine conflict or the partition of India on economic factor? Who will say that partition happened because of economic factor? Because Jinnah wanted a feudal form, Nehru wanted a social. No. Or Israel-Arab problem. Although Israel was formed in 1948, but the problem with the Arabs have continued till from 7th century CE. So is there an economic factor involved? No, there is no economic factor. So how can he say that all historic events can be explained on economic factor? It's not possible. Secondly, if economic factors were everything, then just see the next point. It is a form of determinism. It's called determinism. Okay. What is determinism? That such and such will happen. 2 plus 2 will always be 4. That is determinism. It negates, it ignores the role of accidental factors and leadership. These two things also play an important role. At times, accidental factors shape up many things. They change the course of history. You study history will know that accidental factors have impacted history a lot. Leadership also matters. Now, where is the economic factor here? Where is the economic factor here? And how will you explain such events on the basis of economic factors? There is criticism, right? Not everything is based on economic factor in this world. Understood? The status given to Brahmins in ancient history, ancient Indian history, was it because of economic factor? Not at all. Daridra Narayan it was called. Daridra means poor. Narayan is almighty. Vishnu ji ke liye use hota hai. Where is the economic factor? During ashram system, Brahmins used to ask for alms. Buddha used to ask for alms. Mahavir Jain used to ask alms to make a living, to fill their stomach, right? All the legendary sages, they lived on donations. They had no money, but were they not having any respect? So where was the economic factor? Power of Pope today. Forget the ancient Indian history. The power of Pope, is he having power and respect because he is the richest man? Not so. And it also undermines the role of state. If economic factors are doing everything, what is the need of state? Yes, I've written this. Example of power of Pope or the power of Brahmins in ancient India was not based on their economic status. Do you agree? All of you agree with this? Brahmins were known for their knowledge. They are still known for the knowledge, right? They did not long to be very rich, that we are having so much money. Pope is not saying that Pope is the religious head. He's not a capitalist. So isn't Karl Marx's assumption that economic factor decides everything, an entire superstructure is based on a substructure called economic factor? Isn't this fallacious? It is. It overemphasizes matter and economic factor. Correct? See, our examples are testimony to what I'm saying. It highlights the role of economic factor, but saying that economic factors are each and everything is wrong. Surplus value. Okay, I'll explain this first and then I'll show you the slide so that you will understand everything. What is surplus? You all are watching me on your laptop or maybe phone. Suppose let us take the example of your phone. Who is having the latest phone? Brand new one, latest one. Come on, tell me. Latest phone kiske paas hai tum logon mein se? Sarath, what is which model are you using? And what was the price? You have to tell us. Privacy will be breached. 4 month. Okay. 4 month. Vishnu 4 month. Vishnu one is good. Anirudh, I don't know. 1+70 is how old? It's a 4 year. Okay, I thought. Anirudh, your one from 70. Please, someone tell me the price of your phone and the model. Anirudh, you tell me which model are you using? 15K. Wow. Ramcharan Akash, what was the model? I need to know the model. 15K is a good amount, right? Note 7 Pro. Okay, now stop it. Now see here. Note 7 Pro for 15K. Now see, carefully you see this. Then you will understand each and everything what we have to discuss now. You got it. Note 7 Pro for 15,000 rupees. ये किसका होता है? कंपनी नोट 7 Pro? Redmi. अच्छा था चाइना Xiaomi वाला. So this belongs to Redmi. Now see here. Selling price for Redmi is 15K and he got it. Now try to understand not from a consumer but from a producer's point of view. Let us not feel anything about Ramcharan who had to spend 15K on this phone. Let us understand Redmi. They are selling it for 15K. The cost thing greater than or less than selling price? Any day less than selling price, right? So basic तुमको C-side भी देना है, पता है ना? यही सब उसमें है. Profit, selling price 15K minus suppose cost price was 10K. So the profit would be these. Now Redmi has incurred certain cost. Redmi has incurred certain cost. Total 10K. What would be that? Total 10K. The raw material. Okay. All the chips that are involved in your phone, SD card, whatever this is. Then someone has to make it the worker's salary. Then there would be building and rent, building a factory. Let's call it factory also. These are the fixed costs. These are also costs. These are costs. These are costs. So entire cost amounts to how much? 10K. But he sold it for how much? 15K. What is the profit? 5K. Yeah, na profit. How much is this guy getting? This guy is, and Xiaomi sold how many phones? Lakhs of phones before we became angry with China. We are boycotting Chinese products now. So ये China वाला ही है ना. So before we became angry with China, everyone was having that ringtone, Xiaomi ringtone. Now I'm hearing more of Samsung. Samsung is a South Korean company. Buy more of Samsung. China will be angry. Don't buy Chinese now. So before we were so many phones they must have sold us. Suppose they conservative estimate 10,000 Note 7 were sold for 15K each. Now profit would be 5K on each phone. So again, you keep on increasing this. The profit that Xiaomi makes will keep on increasing the more the product is being sold. Now what about the worker? Worker gets a fixed wage or salary irrespective of the increase in number of sales. Here Karl Marx says that selling price is greater than cost price, and the more units are produced, the profit keeps on increasing. Entire profit, who keeps it? The owner of Xiaomi, the capitalist. He says give it to worker because worker is the one producing the good, worker is the one adding value to the good, and you are giving him a fixed salary and you are making so much profit. This extra profit that is kept by capitalist is surplus value, which is theft. Profit that the capitalist keeps on accumulating by increasing the sales, which is a hard work of the labor of the worker, is surplus value, which should have been kept by which should have been given to the worker, and it has been appropriated or rather misappropriated by the greedy capitalist. This is a theft. Understood? Communism at work. Okay, this is a theft. So what should happen? Surplus value is the difference between the two values which a laborer creates. He is creating it for 10K and which he receives, but he is not receiving the entire amount. It is being sold at 15K and he is getting a mere, peanuts. theory of surplus value is based on the labor theory of value, according to which labor creates value. So 15K belongs to the labor. The profit belongs to the labor. Marx believed that the exchange value of any object is determined by the amount of labor used to create the object. Exchange value is the selling price on which Ram brought that from Xiaomi. Okay, 15K is the price. Now, of course, someone made it, someone packed it. And that is also something called exchange value because it has added something. You get a very nice packet. एक बड़ा अच्छा सा मैंने देखा है Xiaomi phone were packed in a very unique kind of cardboards. So that has also added value. But then again, it has been created by a worker in factory premises, not by the capitalist. Okay, so determined by the amount of labor used to create the object, but the laborer is deprived of his fruit of labor in the form of surplus value. According to Marx, appropriation of surplus value, which legitimately belongs to labor by the capitalist, is a theft. On whatever price a product is being sold, suppose this pen, okay, this thing on which I'm writing, this digital pen has a certain price. Now, the price for which I brought this from the market, the entire amount should go to the worker who made it. Okay, the technicians who were involved into it, not the company, not this company. Okay, not to the company owner, the capitalist, but to the people who made this possible in my hands. Understood? But what will happen? The company will keep the profit and will distribute peanuts to the people who made these things. Now, the difference is surplus value, which is a theft. Understood the concept of surplus value, all of you? The main reason of appropriation for surplus value by the capitalist is the institution of private property. Because capitalist wants to increase his private property, therefore, to serve his greed, he keeps appropriating or keeps misappropriating the surplus value. Understood it or not? Now let us precise this. How many of you agree with this? Entire profit should go to the laborer, not to the Malik. Then tell me one thing. Why not give your entire fees to me? Why to Super 90? Right? Laborer serving to the clients. See, the thing is, if I give my example, whether I come and teach you in your class, I think soon we will meet each other. So the entire, what about the marketing? Did you contact me for classes or you contacted Super 90? You contacted Super 90. There is an institution in place which is serving you through people like us, right? So there has to be a forum. Worker needs a factory. Why isn't he producing in his house? Why he needs to come to the factory? What about the risk taken by the entrepreneur? What about marketing? What about research? Let us criticize this. Marx wrongly believes that only labor creates value. Capital invested by the capitalist, his managerial skills, risk covered by him, all are responsible for value addition, right? All are responsible for value addition. What about the person who selected me to take your class? Who was undergoing all these hardships? The capitalist was, right? So it's not like labor creates everything. Labor has a contribution definitely, but there has to be a suitable forum given to the labor, and that also requires some cost. According to M.N. Roy, no system can sustain without snatching some amount of value from the laborer. Cannot, because money is needed for infrastructure, technology upgradation, R&D, marketing, everything. See, this guy, M.N. Roy, he's the founder of Communist Party of India. You know this? Let me tell you something about this gentleman. He went to Russia. There was something called Comintern being organized in Russia after the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. Lenin was there. So M.N. Roy went from India, participated in Comintern, worked along with Lenin, and it was decided that all these Marxists, he was a die-hard Marxist, but in later years of his life, he became a bitter critic of Marx. As I told you, if you are not a communist in your 20s, you have no spirit. If you are still a communist in your 30s, you have no brains. So this guy developed some brain, but he came back in India, and Communist Party of India was established in 1925 under his guidance. What was the purpose of Comintern? To establish Communist Party in all the countries, and these parties will bring revolution like Lenin brought in Russia. But when M.N. Roy became a critic of Marx, he's saying that how will a system sustain without snatching or appropriating some amount of value from the laborer? Who will give this? Who will give this? Who will give this? So ye bhi ho gaya. Marketing is also here. So who will give these things? Understood? Yes. Not constitution. He raised the word Constituent Assembly, not constitution. Constituent Assembly was given by him. Yes, he also founded the Mexican Communist Party. Right. So M.N. Roy is right here. Can a system survive by giving all the profit to the worker? Where will the capital? Then better the worker produces in his house, attracts all the clients. Now you can say I'm teaching from my house, but the fact that all of you are sitting and listening to me what I'm teaching, this effort has been done by someone else. I did not even contacted you. In fact, for the first time we met was in my first class. There was no effort from my side to reach out to you. Someone else made that effort. That is what entrepreneurship of the capitalist is. Correct? Theory of surplus value is not a scientific and logical theory, but its significance lies in the marks that is used to main tool to criticize capitalism. Now, of course, like some of us say that some part should be given. So people were giving no part. Now they are giving some part. There are incentives based on performances. Okay, employee of the year. All these things are happening in companies. Even workers are encouraged to participate. So of course. But the way he has put it, Karl Marx, that's not going to work. Right? Economic determinism of Marx is mainly a socio-political slogan. This is Max Beer. He criticizes him by saying this. Understood surplus value? I can move this. Class struggle, core of Marxism. History of hitherto existing society is the history of class struggle. Karl Marx says this. Communist Manifesto says this. His book. According to Marx, class is a group of people who have same place in the mode of production. All the workers, all the supervisors, all the managers, all the board of directors. These are the class. Now, hitherto means until this time. Abhi tak ka. Abhi tak ki history, class struggle ki history. A history of hitherto, that is until this time, existing society is the history of class struggle. So history has how it has progressed when class have struggled amongst themselves. Class division in a society is a result of private property. Again, private property. Because of private property, some individuals are related to production as owners and others are sellers. Worker is the seller of labor, owner is the capitalist. They have different places in mode of production. Of course, a worker cannot every day go and talk to his malik, right? They barely interact with each other. First group constitutes the ruling class, example, the capitalist and capitalist system. Other groups is the ruled class, that is proletariat. So here they are saying that there are two classes that has emerged, the working class and the capitalist class. And worker is the seller of labor, capital is the owners of those labors. Revolution takes place when a class in itself converts into class for itself. Class in itself, all the worker class develops certain consciousness. See, try to understand. When these industries started coming in England or other parts of Europe, then factories were built. Now, capitalists needed labor. Many from colonies were taken there. That was slave trade, but the English worker, he was also having a tough time. Though he was protected by the English law, still the exploitation was having, not at the same level which a colonial worker would be facing, but still he was exploited. Okay, so what was happening to him? That he was being exploited by the capitalist. Now, there were colonies being made near the factory where these workers were made to live. Still many companies do that. They give accommodation to their employees. Now it's a very good type of structure that they are providing, good facilities. But during these times, during Karl Marx times, it was a very, very, improper arrangement. Workers used to live in very filthy conditions. Okay, they used to live in very, very cramped and yes, filthy conditions they used to live in. But because 12 to 15 hours they were in factory together, then they come to their house, which is in very close vicinity. They all are neighbors. Whatever little time, free time they get, they interact with each other. They are with each other 24/7. Same cramped societies, same factory, hardly 10 minutes walking distance. Here they are working together. Here they are kind of living together. We have seen old Hindi movies where the workers have a basti and they celebrate, yes, they dance and sing, and then finally they take on the capitalist. Have you seen this or not, any such movie? You must have. So they become a class for itself. They develop class consciousness. They are aware of the wrongs that are being done to them by the state. Okay, now what happens? Appropriation of surplus value. This is one of the reasons which makes class in itself become class for itself. Class for itself means They develop consciousness about themselves. They are now standing up for themselves. They are class for itself. Proximity of proletariat in capitalism due to concentration of industries at few places. Large number of workers came into contact with each other and communication happens. They are sharing the same means of transport. They are sharing the same food, going to the same low cost restaurant, right? Drinking tea at the same chai ki dukan. They cannot go to a barista or a Starbucks or whatever elite form of coffee shop was available at that time. They are communicating with each other regularly. Pauperization of proletariat. Capitalism works on the principle of iron law of wages, due to which labor is given only that minimum wage which is essential for survival. They are given peanuts. You just survive after a laborious day of work. Go to your house, eat so that you are alive. Next morning you wake up, turn up at the factory. This is the iron law of wages. Give him only that much that he can come to the office and work the next day. He has that strength in himself. Do not give him so much so that he can save, because if he saves, he will skip the work. Okay. Crisis of capitalism. See, let us read this, then I'll explain you something more. Crisis of overproduction and crisis of underproduction are inherent in this system, and all these crises most affect the labor class. With growing class consciousness in the working class, class struggle will intensify, which ultimately will lead to revolution. Now, let me explain this. Now, please watch this very carefully. Capitalist always wants to maximize profits. How does he do that? Two things he does. Increase production so that more units are sold, so that he earns more money. Second, right, reduce wages of workers. And please try to understand, when Karl Marx was floating around, there was no middle class. This was absent. Either there were workers or there were capitalists. Only two kind of people were there. He wants to increase production and he's making them work more and reducing the wage because cost is to be reduced. Now, increased production has what? Resulted in stock, what is called inventory in economics. So stocks are piled up. No one is able to buy this stock. Overproduction has resulted into stocks being piled up. Now there is no middle class. There is a worker class, but that worker class is already having reduced wages. So he will spend these reduced wages on bare minimum essentials, that is your roti, kapda and house, makan. He is not concerned about buying this stock. Now who else will buy this stock? There are only two types of people in the society now: worker and worker and the capitalist. Capitalist has made so much production that the stock is not being sold. He is not giving wages to workers. They are already having reduced wages. They are spending every penny on roti, kapda and makan. So these stocks are being fined. So unsold stock, this will be unsold. This will result in factory being closed. Who will lose the job? These are the inherent contradictions of capitalism, because it wants to maximize the profit. There are only two ways through which you can maximize the profit. Either you increase your production or you lower your cost. These are the methods to which you lower your cost, and these are the methods to which you increase your profit. But the consequence would be this: he is losing his job. So his situation will become more and more what? Precarious. More and more sad state of affairs will emerge. His life will become more difficult. So now revolution is inevitable. Kranti to hoga hi, right? Understood? Capitalists would certainly. I'll answer this question. First, tell me, did you understand, all of you, this thing? I'll coming to the question. I'm not denying what you have said, but did you all understand this? Okay, all of you, anyone having any doubt, please tell me. Now, Aditya, coming to your question. Worst affected is the labor class. Of course, capitalist is affected, not the way labor class is affected. Are you understanding? Any economic distress firstly impacts the poor. Even during Corona time, who is the worst affected? The poor. That's why government is rolling out doles. Okay. So worst affected is that because he has so less left for himself. So left, there is no unearned income. Right? Of course, capitalists will suffer. That's why capitalism is the caste system. It has so much of contradictions. Capitalism, you know what he said? The seeds of destruction are inherent in capitalism. Okay, the capitalism is bound to fail because the seeds of destruction are inherent. No, of course, capitalists will be affected, but can you compare the effect it will have on a worker and the capitalist in the same way? No. That is why who will revolt? Worker will revolt. He will throw away the capitalist once and for all. He will throw away. Right? So we can move this. Its fall and the victory of proletariat both are inevitable. Shri Karl Marx. Workers of the world unite. You have nothing to lose except your chains, but you have a world to conquer. Two slogans given by him, two war cries. This is a very famous one. Workers of the world unite. You have nothing to lose except your chains, but you have a world to conquer. Teachers. It is a motor for social change. This is through which social change will happen because class struggle is happening, and one day proletariat will overthrow the capitalist. It's all inclusive. All members of society will participate. No one will be left untouched. Success of revolution depends on the intensity of class struggle. What is the criticism? Same thing which I said. What about middle class? Gandhi believed that class harmony is the main element. See, it is said Gandhi is Marx without guns. And Marx is Gandhi with guns. But then Gandhiji also said that let us try to avoid conflict. Okay, he believes that class harmony is the main element. Yes. Here is my slide, the back one. This one or the previous one? Still previous. Any question here? These are Gandhi believes that not class struggle, Karl Marx, class harmony, Gandhi. Marx has ignored the role of middle class because middle class was not even existent at that time. Today there exists a middle class, right? History has shown that nationalism is more important than class struggle. Why we are saying this? You know what happened in First World War and Second World War? Russia, it was believed that the workers of Russia will side with the Hitler because they are suffering under Stalin and communism. Now you have to read about the Battle of Stalingrad to know the exemplary, courage that the Russians showed. Hitler won France very soon. The Nazi tanks were floating around in Paris. Everything was in shambles. Now he attacked Russia under his overconfidence and he penetrated deep into Russia. People were slaughtered like anything. But the Battle of Stalingrad, that is considered to be a decisive moment of Second World War. The workers of the city and the neighboring adjacent cities, they came along with their soldiers that we will never let Hitler win until we are alive. So the common man sided with its country, not with the class. Hitler was also saying Hitler was a die-hard enemy of communists. Even before he started killing or annihilating the Jews, he was targeting the communists in Germany. Same thing Mussolini was doing in Italy, killing the communists. No talks, kill them. Russia was being ruled by the communists. Lenin was born, Stalin was there, and Stalin was more brutal than Lenin. Stalinism is again a form of communism, is very, very brutal. So workers, their lands were snatched. Those who did not agree to give lands, they were killed and buried under the same land. Still, that worker sided with its government during the crisis. Whatever my country is, I'll fight my government, but no one from Germany or a Hitler will come and tell me what I have to do. I'll defend my motherland. So, workers and capitalists and all the soldiers fought for the same side. History has shown that nationalism, Rashtravad, is more important than class struggle. During war times, see, we keep criticizing our government. There are few people who are always in a perpetual cribbing mode against the current government. But when there is a confrontation going on, most of them, still there are few dishonorable exceptions, no need to name them, but still most of them side with the government, right? That no, we are with you. Teach them a lesson, right? Communists were jailed. Nambudiri Pad, Chief Minister of Kerala, he said in 1962 war that India is the aggressor and China is the one suffering. Nehru jailed all of them. And please listen to the speech delivered by Defense Minister in Parliament today. Please, you will know everything. I said I have forwarded it to many people, the video. I said all the defense experts, please, everyone is a defense expert until the Defense Minister arrives. So please watch it to know the official version, the Indian version, what we have to quote in your exams. given by the defense minister today. Rajnath Singh ji speaks in chaste Hindi, pure Hindi. So maybe will have some trouble. I don't know how good your Hindi is. Relatively good. But then there will be an English version very soon. So please see to know the official stand of the Indian government on the India-China issue. So what history has shown us that nationalism has triumphed over class revolution. Revolution is certain. Let us leave it for tomorrow. Still today, Karl Marx is unleft, and why we are doing it in so much details, because he's a very important thing in your syllabus. Now, just listen here. Why we are doing him in so many details? Because there will be another thing for us to study in political ideology. Then we will not do Marxism and socialism separately. I am covering it here itself. Along with Karl Marx, we are covering his political ideology and the attached ideology of socialism, which is very much a part of your syllabus in political ideology. That is why let us give him 2 to 3 classes so that we don't have to repeat these things in political ideology. And my experience as a faculty tells me that these things should be covered simultaneously. Else, if I tell you something now and then we'll cover so many other thinkers. Now I'll start with Indian political thought. There are other range of thinkers. Now they will come back to the political ideology. Marxism and socialism will come there. So then you won't be able to connect everything like you are able to connect now. I could have skipped surplus value and would have directly come to this revolution. I deliberately did not do that because I am seeing the larger picture. It has to be covered under political ideologies as well. Are you understanding it? Any questions that you have, feel free to ask.
Can we say that Ambedkar is against Karl Marx ideology?
100%. You read his books, Dr. Ambedkar's. I am a staunch enemy of communist, he says. I am a staunch enemy of communist, he says. I'm quoting from his book. Ambedkar is very much against Karl Marx. Santosh, leave these conspiracy theories. You cannot prove whether Mafia made a deal with America during World War II. Let us go by the official versions. When you are preparing for civil services exam, do not get swayed away. Now someone would say, have you heard the name of Rothschilds? So Anirudh, you must be aware that Rothschilds are the one who are controlling all the central banks of all countries, and they are the one who have made every war has been possible because of the finances by the Rothschilds. These are conspiracy theories. Don't see these videos. Who asked you to see these videos? Yeah? Don't see these videos. You will fill your mind with all these things which are not important. Now, I cannot vouch for their authenticity. None of us can. These are versions which are not accepted. Long back then it's okay. Don't do all these things. Okay. Please concentrate on what is being asked in your exam. Go by the official version. People also believe that 9/11 attack was a conspiracy. People also believe that no one has ever been to moon. That was also a conspiracy. So is there any end? People also believe that Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was not killed. There was someone called Gumnami Baba. Okay. So don't. These are good for thrillers. This can give you some kind of thrill. Okay. You feel some interest happens. But my sincere advice is, some people believe on this. Yeah. My sincere advice is, spend your time and energy on things that matter for the exam. Okay. Once you are selected, you can do your own research on these things if you get time. So there is no point going into unverified claims. Yes, he supports education. Karl Marx supports education. Karl Marx also supports women rights. Karl Marx wrote a book on 1857 Indian Revolt. And why revolt happened? Because Britishers are greedy capitalists. Okay. Ambedkar is very critical of communist methods. I'll tell you after I'll finish this. I'll quote his lines here. He has criticized dictatorship of proletariat, and please, I doubt you will get a video. I have a version which I downloaded from Parliament of India, Parliament of India nic.in. Don't try to find it because you will get confused in the archives. Someday I'll share it with you. Let us study Ambedkar in Indian political thought. I'll share his grammar of anarchy speech. I so like that speech, So there he has talked about constitutionalism, constitutional morality. This question was asked in your main exam ethics paper last year, and he has asked about direct. He has said a big no to direct methods of confronting the government. If he would have been here today, he would have jailed all those who were protesting against the CAA. Once the parliament has passed a law, it's only through the constitutional methods that you can confront it, not by direct actions, the Gandhian methods. He's very critical of Gandhi. Okay, I'll send you a speech. I'll send you his BBC interview. We have to study both. Ambedkar's critique of Gandhi is also here. We will not be as critical as he was on Gandhi, but I'll tell you the reality also. Okay, so let us leave it today. Okay.